Describe Tim in 3 words.
You having a laugh?
Pups passed away on the 22nd of March 2017. He was 55. After living with COPD for 4 years or so, a chest infection led to complications with his breathing. His heart stopped, and although he was resuscitated, he suffered severe brain damage which he couldn't recover from. He never really wanted me to see him as a parent, but more as a mate. That's why I never called him Dad, but Puppy. He called me Matey.
A chatterbox.
Deep as in deep emotionally.
A listener.
Crazy. Opinionated.
Strong-willed. Stubborn.
Cheeky.
Cuddly.
Skinny.
Kind.
Definitely funny.
Knowledgeable.
You weren't going to win with him.
You've had phone calls off your mother because it was last for 2 days.
Dare I say, no. Camp.
Flamboyant.
Red wine. And Bowie.
Thin White Duke.
Authentic.
Loving. Supportive. Caring.
Best man, 2 words. Yeah, best man.
Mind you, easy to wind up.
Yeah.
Tim was fun. He had a great sense of humour, but sometimes he thought he was funnier than he actually was. He'd repeat puns to make sure you got them, even though you didn't laugh for a reason.
I'm sure your dad must have told you that we got thrown out of the Admiral Duncan. No, out of the Hems. We were both dead, consumed with alcohol, couldn't hear anything, so we were whispering in each other's ears, or rather shouting in each other's ears. To the barman, it looked like we were making out, so he threw us out. So we went to the Admiral Duncan, had a well of a time there.
My favourite memories of him is of a boy about 7. He was outside in the garden and he suddenly appeared at the window with this mop of platinum hair and skinny as a rake, and he just stood at the window and grinned at me.
I mean, we spent a fairly drunken 5 years or so as best friends. He was a great guy to be around. Very few times were unhappy. And if they were, there was probably another bottle of red wine that we could have done to change that.
He was cultured. He loved music, films, food and fashion. In fact, he worked in fashion, sewing, cutting patterns and designing clothes.
Just to go and see him, I'd have to sit in the room whilst he's smoking, got his music on, and he'd say, oh, have you heard this one? And the flat was awful. I just wanted to get up and clean it. Correcting me, giving me hints. Oh, why don't you do this?
He made this suit. I don't know if you can see the label. It still says Tim Lander-Boyce. And I would stand up and show you the trousers, especially now that I've repaired the crotch. He made these jeans.
When I first started trying to do some kind of sewing, me sitting down with this material and thinking, what am I going to do here? Somebody said, oh, you've just got to talk to Tim.
That was Tim in his young manhood days. Actually, he made some trousers very similar to that when he was one of the ushers at my wedding. And I think my brother-in-law thought, I'm not going to wear that crazy outfit, but he did.
Every weekend was a new adventure. I remember eating tapas and learning the right way to order the best wine. I remember his excitement when the music during the court dancing scene in A Knight's Tale transformed into Golden Years by David Bowie. I remember endless nights introducing music to each other. Have you heard this one? This is a tune. Good one, matey, but it reminds me of this track.
It was just funny. He just made me laugh. We would talk on Skype, and I think, oh my gosh, been in for a good couple of hours here. Tim, I've got to go to bed now. I just remember this. I'd listen to this piece of music.
When my youngest was born, she went away on holiday with her mum. As a surprise, I wanted to decorate her room when she came back, but we never decided to decorate the room until the night before she came back. It may have been finished to look at, but things weren't dry and things were still hanging off and falling off, and even then he was so strong-willed about how he thought the best way to do my daughter's bedroom. To this day, I still think about it.
It's true when they say it's only when you're older you realise how much like your parents you are, because I see a lot of him in me. But where I think we were most alike is how we experience emotions.
I feel like we had just begun a new section of relationship. Recent years, as I've got more comfortable with myself, I realise how similar we are. Yes, he was an extreme chatterbox, but he also really listened. We had a discussion at which point he said to me, I've got you, I've understood you. And I went, that's cool.
Tim was a passionate person and could get caught up in a grand speech on any topic for better or worse. His excitement was infectious. He could pass his energy on to other people. I realise now that when he dressed me up as C-3PO, that was him passing Star Wars on to me. He really got into it, and felt it more than me when I didn't win the costume party. And through life, just like Star Wars, he gave me his passions for so many other things.
Sometimes he used to take the make of me or my background in a good way. I mean, my salsa dancing, so he used to send me links with music and people dancing. And we used to make comments about the music, and he was so interested about anything.
It was a lot of things, as well as introducing me to great music and other stuff, and I was so narrow-minded before I met Tim.
We had a really, in-depth conversation. You know, he'd been this sort of older, almost like an uncle figure rather than a cousin. And on this journey, we chatted and chatted.
But that same energy could be difficult. Rub him up the wrong way and you'd hear no end about it. I've experienced surges of hard-to-control anger, causing me to say things I don't really mean. Not long after, I regret it, and I'm sure Pups felt that way too. But often his pride meant saying sorry was the hardest thing to do.
He said, I can get a camera in Taiwan.
Identical to the camera that I had.
For exactly the same price, but it wouldn't be the same make. So we said, well, you can't get the same camera then for the same price.
We ran him up big time, and he ran out of the pub with his arms flapping everywhere. I didn't speak to him for 6 months.
He ran down back to the ice
did. Talking to himself, and he talked.
Yeah.
We called him out of the blue, and strangely enough, he was drunk. Right, which is very rare. I went, oh, thanks for calling us. Next thing you know, next day we were in a pub with him, and 5 pints of cider and a couple of bottles of wine later, everything's good.
We spoke about loneliness, feeling like nobody really gets you. It saddens me to think that he sometimes felt this way, but it comforts me to know we weren't alone in this.
He called me a skinny brother because I'm slight of weight like Tim was, so we understood a lot about each other, and it gave me more confidence. I started working for Marie Curie. He came down and met me. There were people that I worked with, and he came with me to sort of introduce me to them, this new job, because I was a bit nervous. He didn't need to do that. He was like, you need to make friends at work, Richard. Go and do it. So he did that. He gave me that confidence.
But he was the guy who practically knew everyone down the pub. He'd make conversation with waiters and barmen. He may have felt loneliness, but he was the most sociable person I knew.
Because I used to be a beaver leader, so that was my nickname the kids all gave me. Walking down Falcon Road, and all I can hear is Batty Ratty, not even my name, and I know he's somewhere.
When I first moved to London, he invited me to go to Battersea firework night. I just remember walking through Battersea to the park and back again, and he just knew everybody there.
It's got to be the Woodman. We were all at the Woodman, laughing, joking, whatever. We were like family.
We'd done a surprise. Most of the Woodman pub from Battersea turned up, and the sergeant.
He was so happy that day.
Yeah.
And he held out his arms like with his broad shoulders, or anything like that, and gave everyone big bear hugs.
He had pretty much a wide scope on many things, and I think that was the great delight of hanging out with him. He gave me an open ear, and he would always be there, and he was always great fun. So.
One time he told me I hurt his feelings because I didn't tell him I was gay until my late teens. Well, my mum's a dancer and my dad works in fashion. What did you expect? He laughed so hard. But the truth is, I really looked up to him. And although I knew deep down he wouldn't care about my sexuality, I really valued our relationship and I didn't want it to change.
In my younger years, I was always desperate for friendship from people who impressed me. The dynamic of your father and the independence of your father and his style, it hit me hard, and I wanted to be his friend. Well, I remember Tim hated me. Hate's a strong word, but he couldn't stand me. Later in Brighton, we became really quite tight, and I think that point was after his father had died. I gave him a bottle of whiskey, and he said, "What's that for?" And then I said, "It's not every day a father dies." And he sat there and cried. I think it was because I'd lost my mother at 12 and other people hadn't. On Facebook, I wrote something about the fact my mother had died 40 years previous. The main post was Tim's post, because we hadn't been speaking because I refused to speak to him as he wasn't speaking to Teoh. When I wrote that about mother, he wrote, a bottle of whiskey is coming your way. And that was only a month previous to his death. It just basically solidified and clarified exactly the love we had, even if we weren't speaking for anything. We were always in love.
I admired my dad so much that when one of my school shows was Stars in Their Eyes themed, I put on makeup, a bright orange wig, and performed as David Bowie in front of all of my bullies. All for him.
For some reason he was babysitting in Worthing. It was never like he was a parent or an uncle, it was just like he was an extra friend. I could stay up as long as I want, as long as I could keep my eyes open. So I just remember like literally being on the sofa like trooping and then him being like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I'm awake." I'm trying to stay awake to be a cool uncle.
When Tim was in our lives, he was the life and soul of the party. A bit of a showman, other times a show-off. His passion shone through and lit up everyone around. And in his heart, even when he didn't know how to show it, he was kind and caring.
Well, we felt we had a connection together. That was a very happy time. World at our feet. Well, I guess we were kind of carefree together. And we had our whole future ahead of us. So it was quite exciting time.
I always used to love it when he rang me. "Hello, Mumsy." And when we'd finished, "Loves your Mumsy." And I can't believe that I'm never going to see him again or speak to him again.
To me, he was like my father confessor, you know. He ended up knowing my sort of darkest sort of fears, and he's the one person that truly believed in what I did, and that to me was much more than any friend could provide.
To this day, I still stay up to ridiculous hours listening to music with friends and indulging in an inadvisable amount of booze. Because like Tim, I want to make the most of the world around me and enjoy it with the people I love most. If Tim was here today, what would you say to him?
I love you.
I miss you.
Love you. Love you, Tim.
Thank you, I guess, for the memories we had together.
I wish we'd kept in touch more.
I wish that we could have done more of that. I'm really glad that I spent the time that I did with you.
I would just sit and talk and talk and talk.
I just ripped the piss out of him like he always rips the piss out of me.
It wouldn't matter what you would have to say, you would just talk.
The thing is with Tim, you could go from a heart-to-heart, serious conversation just to fun, rubbish talk.
I told you.
Should have packed up smoking years ago.
I know he did try to give up smoking so many times, and it was, you know, I've got my weaknesses, he has his.
The fact that his father went the same way he went, you know, you think you might have learnt that, but life's not that simple.
He is always right. You know, we let him be right.
Uncle Timmy.
No, he hates that.
He'd be like, "Don't call me uncle and don't call me Timmy."
Whose round was it?
Well, I would say, Boise, next January we've got the cycling in Glasgow.
Get your ash on your bike on June the 18th because we're off to Brighton.
He was a good friend. Really, 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 really good friend. And I'm going to miss him.
I just wanted him to be around forever, really, and that was it.
The only thing you can possibly really say to someone that you love so much is that I love you unconditionally, and I always will. And I'll miss you. I'll miss you until the day I die.
If Tim was here today, what would you say to him?
I love you, Tim.
I'll never forget you, because you're a part of me, and I'll always be reminded of you in the simplest things I do. I love you, pups. Oh, you pretty thing.
He'll be most forgotten. Well, not most forgotten, but he will be...
Dearly missed you.
Dearly missed,
Most
yeah.
forgotten. Oh dear. Candid camera with meatballs again.
He's not filming this. This is a rehearsal.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
But Boise would like that, wouldn't he?
Do you know what? That's the sort of comedy you come at every day, that is. Oh, God's sake. Even the cameraman's laughing.